$100.
Oh, I've got it.
Okay, I didn't want to dress up, let me tell you. You look nice.
Oh yeah.
Oh, man.
I know about the video though. I would have really guessed. So
Alright, so are we...
Yep, we're filming.
we're rolling.
So, why did you decide to get involved with Cornerstone?
I got involved with Cornerstone because I had been involved with the campaign for Harriet Tubman, which is now called Tubman, and it is also a domestic violence program, but Cornerstone serves the community that I live in, Bloomington, and violence, as you all have learned, does not just happen in inner cities. It happens all around us in socioeconomic diversity and in good families and bad families and families of poverty and families of wealth. And I happen to live in a family of wealth and a neighborhood of wealth, and it happens all around me, and I decided I wanted to do something about it. And I happen to have two daughters who are now grown, and they were, at the time that I was involved with Cornerstone, also involved in the dating world, and there was dating violence happening, and wanted to learn more about that, and wanted to be prepared if I ever happened to learn that my daughters were involved in any sort of dating violence or had friends involved, and needed some information. And as it happened, friends of my daughters were involved and needed some information and needed some help, so I was glad I had the tools.
Yeah.
So you served as a board member?
I served as a board member at Cornerstone.
And how was that experience?
It was terrific. I was involved in the campaign to build the new Sheila Wellstone Center, and served on the board beforehand and after the new center was built, and the organization is as strong as ever, is able to serve more families in need, and is certainly stronger in the schools than it ever was before. And Cornerstone's strength is its programs in the schools and its programs with families. That's really what it does. I can't say better than other organizations, but different from other organizations that serve families fleeing violence.
Definitely.
Now to Rebecca.
So I guess if you could just talk about like the volunteer aspect, or like how the organization's run on volunteers and what's done. And...
Well, the organization is managed fiduciarily, which means the money-wise, by a board of directors, which makes its annual budget, approves its annual budget, and then manages the executive staff of the organization. The executive staff then manages the rest of the organization. But the board does the review of the executive director, as well as the chief operating officer of the organization. Sets the annual budget, is responsible for the raising of the funds of the organization, as far as contributed income from individuals, not from government grants or other foundations, but from individuals. That's the board's responsibility. It also sets an annual goal for itself, that it gives, and then it also sets an annual goal for what it will raise from the community. And I'm sure you heard that it serves Richfield, Edina, Eden Prairie, Bloomington, and St. Louis Park.
So could we ask you a little more about the volunteer aspect and
Sure.
what kind of people work there and what they do?
Sure. Volunteers range from high school students, a lot of high school students volunteer there, to receptionists. There's not a paid receptionist there, it's all volunteers. Volunteers are there from, I believe, 8 in the morning until 7 at night answering the phone. Volunteer in childcare, volunteers in the volunteer service center. Some volunteers help in the groups, groups for women and children, and volunteers in the fundraising, volunteers in There are volunteers that work with women in helping to get their resumes together, in helping learn some parenting skills, in helping to set budgets and learning budgeting skills and learning parenting skills. There for the women who live in transitional housing, who have moved out of shelter, learn housekeeping skills, learn maintenance skills, learn just life skills that they may not have learned either living with their abusive partner, because there may have been control issues about that, or just may not know how to live on their own and live taking care of a family. So all those life skills are pretty necessary when you're going to be out on your own. And time management is a very difficult skill for all of us to learn. And when you're coming out of an abusive situation and you're still in crisis and you have a couple of very hungry, very angry little children to take care of, time management is a real it's something very important to learn, and that when you're working with your social worker and with volunteers, they can really help you get a hold of that. So those are very important things in volunteer service. Now Colleen is working with another domestic violence service program, Tubman, and she's doing sort of overarching volunteer work in creating a new facility, and that's in everything from working with the architects and the planners and the builders to raising multi-millions of dollars and working with the executive staff and the government to a needs assessment and the whole bit.
So will that be a new Cornerstone facility, or is it a different kind of facility?
Well, it's the same kind of facility, but it's a different organization. It's called Tubman, and it's you may have heard of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the one I'm.
Oh, it's the same kind of assessment that Cornerstone went through when they built their new facility.
Yeah. I think this question kind of answers itself, but how do you feel about the job that Cornerstone's doing, and like how effective it is?
I think they're doing a terrific job with the money that they have. Unfortunately, their budgets are being squeezed even tighter and tighter and tighter, with the government not being able to give out the money that they used to give out for, especially victim programs. And as you know, domestic violence is a crime, and the people that have suffered in domestic violence are victims of those crimes. And because of that, they should be afforded opportunities in victim assistance, and they are not. And there should be also money for programs in schools to stop this, unless there is education. We don't have a chance.
Yeah.
It's a learned thing. We have to unlearn it. Every learned behavior can be unlearned, and unless we stop the cycle of violence, it's just going to keep perpetuating itself. And since it happens everywhere in all cultures, unless we unlearn it, we don't have a chance to stop it. And it is glorified in our media. It is sexualized everywhere, and we just, as men and women, old and young, just have to say no more. It's got to stop. This is it. And we have a chance to do that, but it takes time and it takes money.
So where do you see Cornerstone heading in the future?
I think it will more and more get into prevention in schools, less and less shelter and less housing, because it's just too expensive to do that. And they're just not going to have the resources to be able to do that. So more and more of their identity and their resources are just going to have to go to prevention, which is a wonderful thing. But it is unfortunate for those families that need the services of the immediacy of shelter and transitional housing, because it's just too expensive and it's not going to be there, and it's very difficult.
Yeah. What do you think the role of youth is in prevention for domestic violence?
Oh, saying no to watching it in the media, saying no in dating situations, talking about it. That's what you have to do. You have to talk about it, and you can't hide it. And you have to talk about it. It can't be shameful. It used to be. In our churches and in our synagogues and in our mosques, it wasn't talked about. It was swept under the rugs. Well, let's start airing that dirty laundry and get it out in the open where we can solve it. Nothing can be solved when it's hidden in a closet. So we just have to talk about it.
Definitely.
Does that cover what we need?
Yeah.